The movie kicks off with a guy named Heller tinkering away at his busted plane. His wife Sarah walks over and asks him to come inside. Heller brews her a cup of coffee, and Sarah mentions that she needs to head to London for work for 5 days. Heller's not thrilled about it, but he walks her to the car and says his goodbyes. So, Heller hops in his car and heads to work. He's an analyst over at a CIA office. At work, he chats with a co-worker called the Bear. As they're having a conversation, the Bear brings up that he needs some help with his computer, and Heller jumps in to offer his assistance. So, it looks like Heller is a total genius with an IQ of 170. So, after that, Heller heads into his office and begins checking out some files. While he's busy working, he receives a message from his online buddy, Inkaline. There's some confidential info in the message regarding the government. While Heller is reading, he spots something unusual. So, Sarah gives him a call. He chats with her for a moment, then turns his attention back to the file. When Heller opens the files, he discovers something really surprising. Can you believe it? His own government decided to carry out drone strikes on countries that are supposed to be friendly. He finds out that Director Moore and a guy named Caleb are the ones behind the attacks. Heller makes a quick exit from the office. So, that night, Heller gives it a shot and tries to call his wife Sarah, but she just doesn't pick up. The following morning at work, Moore swings by Heller's office and invites him to meet with Director O'Brien. She lets Heller know that Sarah was killed in an attack. Moore shares the news with him and goes over what happened. Feeling utterly heartbroken, Heller heads home, struggling to wrap his mind around the fact that Sarah is truly gone. The next morning, Heller chats with Moore and Caleb about what went down and asks what their plans are moving forward. Moore reassures him, saying not to worry because everything will be taken care of. A few days later, Sarah's body and her things show up at the airport. At home, Heller sorts through her belongings and begins to cry. In the coming days, Heller continues to dig into the attack. He looks into everything and shares what he discovers with Moore and Caleb. So, it looks like the attackers were actually a group of 4 individuals. In the middle of a scuffle with the security team, one of them ended up taking out a guard. The situation caused everyone to freak out, leading them to grab some hostages in a hurry. They picked people right out of the airport waiting room, and Sarah was one of them. So, the person who took Sarah was called Mishka Blazhik, and there was another one named Elish. In their attempt to get away, they ended up killing Sarah. So, later on, the attackers mentioned a dealer named Frank. When Heller shares the news with Moore and Caleb, they don't look surprised at all. That's when Heller figures out they were already in the loop about the attack. When he brings it up, Moore mentions that their true aim is to take down the whole organization. So, Moore suggests that Heller should attend a therapy session. In the session, Heller shares everything with the therapist. He's feeling a bit lost and frustrated that nothing is happening. That's when he figures he needs to take matters into his own hands and stop these people himself. A couple of days later, Heller tucks a bug onto his ID card and slips into the office unnoticed. He prints out some secret files that reveal what Moore and Caleb have been up to. So, he heads over to a bar and spots a CD machine that he thinks he might be able to use. The next morning, Heller grabs the printed papers and begins to blackmail Moore and Caleb. He lets them know that he has backup copies of the information, and if anything were to happen to him, the files would be sent to the media. He mentions that he wants to be the one to take down the people who killed Sarah and asks to be trained for the mission. Moore sees that they're in a bit of a bind, so he decides to go along with it and puts a guy named Henderson in charge of training Heller. Heller has a tough time during training. It's funny how he can't hit a target with a gun, yet when it comes to making explosive weapons, it's like he was born to do it. Henderson also creates fake passports for him. During training, Henderson points out that even when they're right up close, Heller just can't seem to pull the trigger. So, back at the CIA office, Caleb starts to feel a bit suspicious. He begins looking through Heller's files and searches all over for the backup data, even at Heller's house, but comes up empty-handed. So, they find out that Heller has been hitting up a bar multiple times. They thought the files could be there, so they checked the bar and found the CD machine. But when they finally open it, they find out that Heller was just bluffing. It's empty in there. Feeling a bit anxious, they reach out to Henderson and ask him to bring Heller back. So, when Henderson heads over to Heller's room at the training center, he discovers that it's empty. Heller's already gone, and he took the fake passports with him. Heller grabs those fake passports and heads off to London. So, he begins to follow this dealer called Gretchen Frank. He even sneaks into her house to search for clues. So, when Gretchen gets home, Heller aims a gun at her, but he just can't go through with it. So, he comes up with another idea. So, while Gretchen is at the hospital getting treatment, Heller sneaks into her room and slips some poison into her oxygen machine. So, she wakes up, makes her way out of the chamber, and even has a showdown with Heller before dashing out into the street. So, she gets hit by a car and unfortunately, she dies. Heller grabs her phone and hurries away from the scene. So, he picks up his stuff and heads off to France. So, one night at this bar, he starts to feel like someone's got their eyes on him, like they're following him around. Hey, it's Henderson! Heller makes a break for it, but Henderson is right on his tail. Heller starts a conversation to distract Henderson. Henderson says he can't go back and change what's already happened. As they chat, Heller takes advantage of the distraction to slip away. The next morning, Heller shoots a message to his anonymous online buddy, looking for some help. So he hops on a flight to Istanbul and catches up with his buddy Inquiline. They head over to her safe house and begin the hunt for the killers. So Director O'Brien is starting to get this feeling that Moore might be up to something sneaky without her knowing. She brings it up with him, but Moore just brushes it off and insists that he's totally on her side. As he walks out, O'Brien figures out that it was Moore who sent Henderson to train Heller, and she starts looking into it. So, back at the safe house, Heller and Inquiline discover that one of the killers is in Madrid. Heller is heading over there. He discovers that the killer enjoys swimming solo in a sky pool. There's this pool that's made of glass, and it's way up in the air. Heller has created a gadget that can shatter the pool's glass. The following day, Heller faces off with the killer and presses for the name of the other person tied to Sarah's death. But the killer just won't spill the beans. So, Heller turns on the device, the glass breaks, and the killer goes down with the water, meeting their end on impact. Inquiline discovers that Henderson is tailing Heller and quickly gives him a heads up. Heller takes off running, and just when it looks like Henderson is about to catch him, another CIA agent, sent by Director O'Brien, jumps in to stop Henderson. The two agents end up in a heated brawl. Eventually, some other CIA agents show up and take out Henderson. Heller's eager to lend a hand to Henderson, but Inquiline steps in and tells him to move along. So, over at the CIA office, Director O'Brien is chatting with Moore about Heller. Moore claims he doesn't know anything and then just walks away. O'Brien takes a look at the surveillance footage from Madrid later on. She notices something that makes her wonder if Inquiline could be assisting Heller. So, the CIA begins to track Inquiline and discovers she's in Istanbul. So, they reach out to the embassy over there. So, that night, while Heller and Inquiline are catching some Z's, CIA agents are creeping around their safe house. They get up and dash off in a hurry. They hop into a car and make a run for it, but during the chase, a bullet strikes Inquiline, taking her life in an instant. Heller swiftly switches seats and heads to a safe spot. He gives her a kiss goodbye before he heads out. A couple of days later, Heller receives a message from Frank's contact regarding an arms deal. So he's on board to supply weapons, and then he goes ahead and uploads his face into this special software that can make others look just like him. He has no idea that the CIA believes he's in Berlin because of this trick, and they're sending agents over there. So, Heller is laying a trap for one of the killers. He has this bomb that detonates if anyone tries to move away from it. So, when they finally catch the killer, Heller starts asking him questions and discovers that their leader is always hanging out on a ship. Heller grabs the killer's phone and heads out. As he strolls away, the killer inadvertently shifts and gets taken out by the bomb. The CIA comes to the realization that they've been tracking the wrong person all along. They decide to call off their search for Heller. Heller heads over to a port by the Baltic Sea and begins to observe some shady deals going down around a large ship. While keeping an eye on the deals, he unexpectedly bumps into the Bear, his former co-worker who's also on the run. They chat for a bit, and Bear lets Heller know that he's aware of everything he's done, and he's ready to help him no matter what. A couple of days later, Heller is keeping an eye on a deal from afar, so the dealers see him, take him down, and bring him to their boss, a guy named Slater. That night, Heller gets taken onto Slater's ship to meet him. While on the ship, Heller has a chat with Slater about the deals he struck with Moore and Caleb. Slater tells Heller that he's not a killer. He's just too scared to pull the trigger. Slater hands Heller a loaded gun and challenges him to pull the trigger. Heller aims the gun at him, but he just can't pull the trigger. So then something weird goes down. The ship begins to turn by itself. Slater starts to feel anxious and attempts to take charge, but Heller coolly informs him that he hacked the ship. It's now making its way into Finnish waters. Heller mentioned that he's already reached out to Interpol and the Finnish Navy. Before long, Slater and his crew find themselves caught and taken into custody. So, in the end, both Moore and Caleb end up getting arrested for all the things they did. Heller finally gets justice for his wife and finds some peace. In the end, he runs into Henderson again. And guess what? He's still alive. Heller takes one final flight in the little plane that Sarah had given him, feeling a connection to her again.